Everybody, Danny Davis, the Austin American-Statesman, and this is your Longhorn Confidential for Tuesday, November 25th. I'm joined by my fellow statesman scribes, Thomas Jones, David Eckert, Cedric Golden. He got the week off today. If you really want to see him, go find the Behind Enemy Lines podcast of Tony Catalina as we prepare for this Texas A&M matchup, which is this Friday, Black Friday, over at DKR, 6:30 kick if you're watching at home. It's an ABC telecast, but get on down to the stadium if you can afford to get in because those tickets, they are not cheap. Very glad that I have my press pass, boys.
Yeah, that's gonna. I haven't been looking at the prices. Are they really breaking the bank? What are we looking at here?
Yeah, they're well above what I've seen, above 500 a pop for
Oh
the
my
cheap
God.
seats, maybe more.
You got to ask Santa early for those tickets. That may be your Christmas gift. But let's talk some football. Maybe talk a little turkey. I'm just stumbling all over myself today. We're gonna keep it rolling. Texas is 8-3 this season, 5-2 in SEC play. The Aggies, they are undefeated, 11-0, 7-0 in SEC play. They have not yet secured a spot in the SEC championship game. A win will get them in. If they lose, they need a couple other things to happen this week. But Texas, we know they are not going to the SEC championship game. They're trying to get into the playoffs, which A&M, they're all but assured to spot in the playoffs and stay number 3 in the college football rankings. We're recording this on Tuesday afternoon. Texas is currently 17, which is what they were last week. We expect them to get bumped up to maybe 16, maybe 15 when the committee releases its new rankings this evening. Mac, we'll start with you, though. Does a win over this number 3 Texas A&M team, this seems to be a topic of conversation every week for us, but does a win over the Aggies get Texas into the playoffs?
I'm still leaning no. We'll see what happens tonight. We're recording this on Tuesday, so we'll see what happens tonight with the rankings. But I just think too much needs to go right for them. Maybe if they beat A&M by 30 on Friday, it's a different story. But I just think there's too much distance between them and where they need to get. Because remember, the ACC more than likely and the group of 5 are both going to account for 2 automatic bids coming outside of the top 12. So Texas is going to have to be a top 10 team heading into the playoff if they're going to get in. And I just, that's a lot of distance to cover. And when you're playing one game and you're maybe 16th or 15th, depending on where they land tonight.
What do you think? What's on the line this week? And can Texas possibly get into that top 10 range?
I agree with Dave. I don't think it's really feasible. There's just too much that would have to go right for Texas. There'd be too many upsets that have to happen. And they're not going to take 6 SEC teams. And right now, Texas, at best, is that 6th SEC team looking in. It's just not going to happen. It's okay. Orlando, the Citrus Bowl, it's nice this time of year. Right? Disney?
I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford Disney right before Christmas and right after, or I guess it'll be right after Christmas. But I would be really interested if Texas beats A&M. I think they put a lot of pressure on the committee because you look at the teams that are in front of Texas, and yes, Texas is going to be, they're going to have those 3 losses, and that Florida loss sticks out like a sore thumb. But they will have 3 wins over top 10 teams, when Texas played them. They'll have 2 losses against arguably 2 of the best teams in the field. So then you look at some of those teams. It'd help Texas if Oklahoma loses. It will really help Texas if Texas Tech doesn't, stumble in the Big 12 championship game, because that creates a whole nother, at-large chaos. But Notre Dame has literally beaten nobody and would have lost to a Texas A&M team that Texas beat. And they'll have 2 losses. BYU lost the only game on their schedule that counted. Utah has 2 losses in Big 12 play, and the Big 12 is a trash conference. Sorry, Tech fans, but it is what it is. I don't see Vanderbilt staying ahead of Texas with a head-to-head loss to this Texas team. Miami probably is not even going to the ACC championship game, and they still somehow are, ranked ahead of Texas. So I think if Texas does get this Texas A&M win, is able to say we beat a top 10 A&M team. We beat a top 10 Oklahoma team. We beat a Vanderbilt team that was top 10 at the time and is currently ranked above them. I just think that, just dares the committee to put one of those teams, which I just don't believe has a better resume, except for you to say, they lost to Florida. I think that's the only real detriment on Texas. And I just think that puts a lot of pressure on the committee. Would the committee do it? Maybe. They've done it throughout the ranking process. But,
Did you steal Sark's talking points if they do pull out a win? Because he's going to be saying those exact same things after the
I
game.
want to talk about it on Monday. So I said, Steve, I got you, man. I'll jump on the Longhorn Confidential podcast because I know the committee members love our podcast, and I'll get to all those talking points. But I think if you're Texas, that's the argument you make. Whether or not the committee wants to hear it, that's a whole different conversation. But I think Texas's resume would be better than maybe after that number 7, number 8 spot. I think you could argue your way in over any of those teams, but it is hard to jump from 17 to 10. That is a huge jump.
It's worth noting, I think. Arkansas's athletic director is the new committee chair. So is Hunter Yurachek going to be wanting to do Texas favors? I think that's an interesting storyline as well.
What's college football without conspiracies?
Well, exactly, So yeah, we'll see what that results in.
All right, so we just talked about Steve Sarkisian's Monday press conference, and on Monday we got a chance to talk to Michael Tapp, as we always do. And Michael kind of at one point, started listing the Heisman Trophy contending quarterbacks that Texas has faced this season. You got Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt, you got Gunnar Stockton at Georgia, and Texas gets Marcel Reed at Texas A&M this season, who's having a spectacular season, is definitely contending for at least an invitation to New York. But someone asked him, "Hey, Mike, if you had a Heisman Trophy vote, who would you give it to?" And he said, "My guy, Arch Manning, the other number 16." And granted, that may have been a little bit of politicking, but Michael had his own reasons. But this is going to be a fun little matchup between two really good quarterbacks this weekend, with Arch playing for Texas and Marcel playing for A&M. Last year, Arch kind of came in and a little package deal, ran for a touchdown. Marcel struggled a little bit, was actually intercepted on Michael Tapp. But Thomas, we'll start with you. We're acting like this is a playground game. You got first pick on Friday. Who are you picking, Marcel or Arch?
I'm picking Arch, man. You always pick that big kid who's the fastest guy on the on the playground. Arch is 6'4", 225. He can do things with his arm that Marcel Reed just can't do. And I love Marcel Reed. I love him as a player. I love what he does for that offense. I love his playmaking instincts. I love how he moves the chains. But Arch has physical tools that Marcel just doesn't. And Arch is growing into what Marcel is right now, which is a winner and just an effective quarterback.
Who you got?
Yeah, I think Arch is the better quarterback of the two. I think if you stick Arch in Marcel's situation this year, Arch just goes bonkers numbers wise. I think you've seen. I had this stat in my film study that I did, and I don't remember it, but off the top of my head. But Arch is averaging like 300 yards passing per game when he's in games that he's pressured on less than 35% of his dropbacks, which is so. If you give Arch time to throw the football, Arch rewards you. And obviously A&M, I think, would probably have the two best receivers if you combine the receivers room there with Concepcion and Craver. So I don't know. I think if you stick Arch in that situation, I think he would have better numbers than what Reed has right now.
Actually, their statistics are very similar. If you actually stack them up next to each other, it's kind of I think Arch has one more rushing touchdown. Marcel has 2 more passing touchdowns, but their passing yardage is almost identical. I think 11 yards separate the two. But give me the guy who's 11-0. I'll just keep it simple. You can't go wrong with either guy, but give me the guy 11-0. That's pretty impressive way that he brought that team back against South Carolina a couple weeks ago, because that team should have been dead in the water, and they managed a way to rally around their quarterback. So I'll take Marcel in this argument, mix it up a little bit, but I think both fan bases are pretty happy with the guy they had back there.
I think with Marcel, really, you see where he was last year, and having that year of experience under his belt really helped him. And I think Arch will take a similar growth next year. I mean, he already has really, but I think he'll be even better next year with 1 year under his belt.
The Texas defense that Marcel Reed gets to face this weekend, they are struggling. I think ever since TJ wrote that story and asked Colin Simmons about the defense and special teams carried this team until the offense they caught up, things have kind of gone backwards. 30 points in each of the last 4 games. Some of those games you can quibble a little bit just because there was some late scores against Vanderbilt and Arkansas that kind of inflated those numbers. But 30 points, that's 4 straight games. Eck, when you kind of look it over, what concerns you the most about this Texas defense and the way it's played the last month?
Yeah, they just give up a ton of explosive plays. It's weird. I mean, with the quality of safeties and the quality of generally what we assumed was a really, really good secondary coming into this year. I mean, it's just been very strange that they haven't been able to kind of keep the top on some of these offenses. And, I think to their credit, they're creating explosive game-changing plays of their own on defense, right? We saw that against Arkansas where, they get the strip sack into a touchdown and that weird Taylon Green interception that I just have no idea what the heck happened there. But, I just think if they're going to win this game, they're going to have to figure that out. Certainly, you can't just be giving up chug plays left, right, and center. And I think if you're a Texas fan, that's really concerning.
TJ, what stands out to you among the defensive issues?
Yeah, it's just they're just getting schemed up in the secondary. I mean, every team they face they work some schemes where they get guys wide open, and that's a little surprising to me, but that's just what's happening. I mean, Taft credited Arkansas. When Michael Taft spoke with us Monday, he gave Arkansas credit for their offensive design and freeing guys up in the secondary, but it happens every week. It's not just Arkansas. Every team they play finds open guys, and I don't expect that to change against the Aggies. It's just something is a little bit off in that secondary, and then Coach Pete Kwiatkowski, defensive coordinator, just something's a little off back there.
Done by the lack of a pass rush. Colin Simmons has gotten his double-digit sacks first Longhorn since 2013, but no other Longhorn has more than 4 sacks. I know sometimes you get those quick passes out and you can kind of scheme around a pass rush, but I was amazed. 10 quarterback hurries against Arkansas, 1 sack. And these are like 5-star guys going after them, and having Anthony Hill hurts those numbers because he's the only other guy with 4 sacks. But Arkansas, these teams are, as we talked about, they're passing the ball a lot. Texas ranks 105th in passing yards allowed, so teams are dropping back, and Texas isn't putting pressure on the quarterback. So if you have a Colin Simmons, other guys are going to step up. I think Eck, at some point this week, you're writing about that pass rush, and they're going to have to figure out a way to pressure Marcel Reed into some mistakes and not just let him have all the time in the world to pass it. So I've been a little stunned by the pass rush and letting opposing teams put pressure on what is kind of a young secondary with Grayson Littleton and Cade Phillips and Jonah Williams having to play more and more. So the guys up front, kind of more the veteran part of that defense, need to step up down the stretch, at least in my humble opinion.
Yeah, that's a good Aggies O-line too. Like that's not going to be easy this week. And so if they can't get pressure on them, and then you mentioned you've got 2 talented guys, but I think 2 freshmen and Grayson Littleton and Cade Phillips against those wideouts, you're going to need a pass rush. You need to figure that out.
And then, Trey Zoom the third, the Aggies left tackle, I think he's the best pass protector in college football. And Pro Football Focus agrees. So if we watch him and Colin Simmons Friday, if they match up, which I hope they do, that's going to be fun. That's an NFL matchup we're going to be watching.
If you're watching at home, you can watch that matchup while pulling out some leftovers from Thanksgiving, which brings us to the most important question that we have to answer today. TJ, we'll start with you. You're a veteran of many Thanksgivings. What is your go-to side and go-to dessert? We'll leave the turkey versus ham debate for another day. But what's your go-to side and go-to dessert?
Go-to side. I like them all, first of all. If anybody knows me, if they see me, they're going to realize I like it all. My wife makes a really good homemade cranberry dressing, which is really good. But that's good and all. Let's get to the pies, the desserts. I like them all. I like the pumpkin. I like the sweet potato. I like the pecan. I like the apple. Get a little blueberry in there, maybe French apple. And then I like to eat them the whole weekend for breakfast after Thanksgiving. Get my coffee, get a piece of pie, a little whipped cream every morning. It usually lasts till about Sunday, 3 days. So that's the highlight of my Thanksgiving weekend. Pie for breakfast.
Like, I don't know if you have some regional differences from us since grew up in Pennsylvania or over on the East Coast, but what's your go-to Thanksgiving side and dessert?
Yeah, I had never heard the word dressing used that way until I lived in Mississippi before this, and they quickly let me know that stuffing and dressing are not the same. But I think my go-to side is candied yams. Big candied yams guy. Get a little brown sugar, some marshmallow on there. Fantastic. And then if we're going pie, it's not traditional, but um, when I was growing up, my mom made the world's best blueberry pie with a little scoop of vanilla ice cream on there. We'd have blueberries, growing around the house. We'd go pick them. Yeah, just fresh blueberry pie. You can't beat it.
Oh yeah, I'm all over that.
Oh, tell Mama Eckert to send some to the Statesman. We can put that on the altar, and everyone can go to town on that. That sounds delicious.
She likes to watch these, so she just might do that.
All right. I love our biggest fans, especially the ones that send us food. I will go with I'm a big pumpkin pie lover, and I think the best thing I ever did in my life was marry into a family that does not like pumpkin pie, and so every year I get one to myself. It's kind of the cheat code that I have because no one else will touch that. So that thing is pretty much all mine to work on for the next week. And then sides, I agree with that. Candied yams are awesome. Mac and cheese can be hit or miss, but if you have someone in the family that can make a good mac and cheese, that's something I'll definitely hit up a couple times. I love myself a nice fluffy roll with some cranberry sauce. Obviously, you got to throw some turkey on there, make some mini sandwiches. So I don't think unless you are in a family that can't cook, you're not going to go hungry at Thanksgiving. There's usually a couple really good dishes, and you save some room for seconds or thirds as you watch the Cowboys game or watch the game. I guess it's the Ravens and Bengals playing that night, or save it for the next day for this Texas game. But Thanksgiving is a great time to eat, and hopefully everyone here gets fed this week.
Yep.
I am excited. I've got my stretchy pants at the ready.
We're gonna go. I'll go figure out what's in my closet, what I can pack for this weekend. But that's gonna do it for us. We're gonna have a ton of content on statesman.com to get y'all ready for the Aggies' first visit to DKR since 2010. So that's a long time coming. A lot of excitement. Should be a great atmosphere. There's a really good atmosphere for the Arkansas game, and I can only imagine it's gonna be even more intense this weekend with a lot more on the line and a lot more venom between these two fan bases. But statesman.com for all of our content throughout the week. YouTube for Longhorn Confidential, which will be back on Wednesday with Tony Catalina talking more A&M. Tony's hosting his Behind Enemy Lines podcast. So it's said, I believe there's going to be On Second Thought podcast at some point this week with Sed and Kirk. So lots of content, lots of stuff to read. Newsletters, Sed's Corners on Tuesdays, Daily Hook'em newsletter throughout the week. And then check us out on game day because we will all three of us will be there, plus Sed. We'll have all of our stuff on statesman.com afterwards. So we appreciate you reading. We appreciate you watching. We appreciate you listening. We really do hope you all have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll see you at DKR on Black Friday. Deuces.
Happy Thanksgiving all.
See y'all.
Awesome.